You can get up to a $1,000 prepaid card when you switch to Comcast Business, the company with the largest, fastest, reliable network. So if you're a small business owner, don't wait. Call or go online to learn about the $1,000 bonus today.
Give your business a head start in 2024. Get started with fast speeds and advanced security for $49.99 a month for 12 months with a 2-year agreement. Call or go online to switch today. Ends 2/21/24. Restrictions apply. New customers only with 50 megabits per second internet and Security Edge. EcoBill and autopay required. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. Prepaid card offer requires premium internet.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Do you ever feel like getting your supplies for your CPAP is just a huge headache? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. We'll say goodbye to the hassle and hello to a stress-free life with our CPAP resupply service. Signing up is a breeze. Just place a call, choose your products, and leave the insurance billing and shipping to us. Our discreet packaging prioritizes your privacy, and we always ensure an on-time delivery. No more trips to the store or worrying about running out of important supplies. We get how crucial your CPAP therapy is, so don't let the stress of keeping up with it affect your sleep and health. Join Alpine Resupply today and enjoy a tranquil night's sleep with all your CPAP essentials. Visit us at alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
That's alpinehomemedical.com.
The monster is coming, and it wants you and your family.
And that's great news, really, because it's time for the Bear Lake Monster Winterfest, January 26th through the 28th. Winterfest is all about an incredible celebration of winter and all the fun it brings. So start Friday with Monster Winter Sports and Trails Day, a free event featuring fat tire bikes, snowshoes, snowmobiles, and tubes for the kids. Also a taste of Bear Lake, with local restaurants dishing up their tasty specialties. Then Saturday, it's the Monster 5K Walk and Run, a Monster Cisco Disco Tournament, chili cook-off, even a cardboard boat regatta, followed by the famous Monster Plunge. Come on, Bear Lake awaits. Visit BearLakeMonsterWinterfest.com for pre-registration times and locations. That's BearLakeMonsterWinterfest.com. Presented by Bear Lake Visitors Bureau and Bear Lake Chamber.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair. Save up to 20 cents with DinoPay. Here's Ricky Meese.
Freeway traffic rolling along in the valley. Our main secondary is also in good shape. I-80, it is snow-packed or seeing snowfall, and that's both directions, anywhere from just before Parley Summit all the way to the Wyoming state line. And the closer you get to Wyoming, it is icy and dicey. So if your travels are taking you that way, especially for professional drivers, be aware speeds are slow and it is very slick and treacherous. Don't miss the amazing Utah Auto Expo, January 12th through 15th at the Mountain America Exposition Center. See the newest cars, trucks, electric vehicles, all in a non-selling environment. AutoExpoUtah.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Snow arrives this afternoon with 1 to 3 inches falling in the Wasatch Front valleys. Mountains could get up to 16 inches. Then a bigger storm moves in Saturday evening, sticks around until Sunday night, and that could drop 4 to 9 inches in the valleys. And right now, we're looking at 30 degrees with cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Over the last 24 hours, the headlines, of course, have been centered on the U.S. military, along with important allies in the region, have targeted strikes on the country of Yemen, going after Houthi installments, trying to change the dynamics of what the Houthis have been doing in harassing and attacking the U.S. military and cargo ships moving through the region. So that's the headline. We want to get past that, as always, to get underneath it, say, what is this really doing? What does this tell us about the policies of the Biden administration? What powers does he have versus what needs to be done by Congress? And then what does it mean for the possibility of an escalating regional war in the Middle East? And what does it mean for us right back here at home? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as always, it's a great pleasure to have joining us on the program someone who always helps us understand things, particularly as it relates to the Middle East. Behnam Bentaleblu, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He focuses on Iranian security, political issues, and so much more. And obviously, as things continue to evolve, unravel, reestablish, settle down, there's so many moving parts and places and people in all of this that we want to break it down just a little bit for you. And Behnam, welcome back to the program.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, and a belated Happy New Year to you and your listeners.
Well, thank you for that. And it has been a fast and furious start to the new year. Of course, the announcement came out formally from President Biden today that under his direction, U.S. military forces, together with the United Kingdom, along with support from Australia, Bahrain, and Canada, and the Netherlands, successfully conducted strikes against a number of targets in Yemen used by Houthi rebels. That was the statement coming out. It was unprecedented in terms of the attacks the Houthis have been doing in international maritime waters and vessels. And Behnam, as you look at this, give us the broad brush first. What's your reaction to what we've seen take place over the last 24 hours, and where are we?
Well, over the last 24 hours, we've had something somewhat historic, and both those words matter, somewhat and historic. This is the first time the U.S., and in particular with coalition members, directly or jointly with the UK, but supported by a broader coalition that includes Australia, Canada, and even Bahrain, took military action against the Houthis in Yemen. The Houthis are a rebel group that have overrun that country since 2014, 2015, materially, politically, financially backed by the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism, which is the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran. They have these huge missile and military capabilities, large drone capabilities, almost all brought to you by the Islamic Republic of Iran. And they have harassed maritime shipping since the October 7 terrorist attack against Israel by Hamas and the ensuing Israel-Hamas war in Gaza. They began to harass shipping starting on October 19th. And ultimately have had about 25, 26 harassment incidents in the Red Sea, leading to volatility in oil prices, spikes in insurance premiums, diminished Red Sea trade, all of which will have an impact on markets, prices, and consumers in Europe and elsewhere, particularly given the fact that East-West trade matters a lot more now by sea, given the ongoing Russia war as well, which we should not forget about. Ultimately, the U.S. and the UK did use force. It's an attempt to restore deterrence. There's a question right now, even though there's an attempt to handicap these Houthi long-range strike capabilities and missiles and drones by going after storage depots, if they've gotten everything, if this doesn't require a cleanup strike after, and if the Houthis won't fire what they have retained. Because it's highly likely that this could be a copy and paste from what we've seen from Biden in Iraq and Syria, which is just a couple of strikes, and then you pull back and you hope the adversary doesn't respond or doesn't escalate, which unfortunately they almost seem to always do.
Yeah, and I'm going to dig into that part just a little bit. You've talked about throughout the last 24 hours kind of degrading that Houthi long-range strike capability. That's kind of the one-off retaliation or reaction to what's been going on. You also alluded to the fact that this is kind of a deterrent strategy that has been tried in Iraq and Syria and other places. Give us a sense in terms of what are we likely to see? Will this be a real deterrent, or is this one of those where the Houthis just kind of put their head down for a little bit, reconstitute, recalibrate, and then we see that deterrence doesn't last very long?
It's highly likely you're going to see the Houthis respond. Already there's been news of an attack on a British vessel. The Houthis have dispersed, again, much of these capabilities, but in essence, the handicapping or at best defanging best explains the goal of the U.S.-UK strike, But again, the Houthis have already been successful in Yemen. It's the Arab world's poorest country. Even prior to the war between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia and the Arab coalition, the country was awash with Chinese, Russian, Soviet, and North Korean weapons. Then you layer on Iranian weapons on top of that, and then you layer on the fact that there was a ceasefire since 2022, but that Houthi material capabilities grew immensely since 2022, and these capabilities are widely dispersed. It's highly likely the Houthis still have the capability and intent to continue to use force against these ships. So we're likely going to have to see more than a one-off strike to have a real impact. And also, just zooming out, I would say, the wars in the Middle East today, you see this with the U.S., you see this with Israel, are not just about capability. They're about interest and resolve. And local actors with lesser capabilities have shown greater amounts of resolve. And it is that resolve that is likely going to be essential to igniting the next round of escalation between the Houthis and whomever else.
Yeah, and I think that's such an interesting component to all of that in terms of what it's going to require moving forward. We know politically already here at home, and I think with partners in the region, the question is, what does the United States do next? Does the president have resolve? Will he continue to do that? Will there be a debate in terms of this is beyond anything the president can just do on his own? Does he need to take it to Congress? Talk to us a little bit about both what that conversation looks like, but importantly, what does it do in the region when the U.S. starts to say, okay, wait a minute, this might be more a Congress issue than a president issue, and it creates confusion rather than clarity?
There is a great amount of confusion still because there really is no Yemen policy, in my view. It's one thing to talk about, the executive branch, citing articles, particularly pertaining to self-defense, to be able to exercise this force. It's absolutely another thing and an imperative thing for Congress to continue to ask about, not just the legal authorities for this strike, but what is the political strategy and the utility behind this strike? For instance, you never want to put a loaded gun in a shaky hand. And the Biden administration, in my view, prefers restraint and de-escalation, rightly so, particularly during an election year. But the problem with restraint and de-escalation, even coming from like a classically liberal philosophy, is that it usually incentivizes ideological adversaries that we have no shortage of in the region to not engage in restraint and, in fact, to escalate, to press their advantage, to gain the interest that they have. And so it's a very tough lesson the Biden administration has been learning over the past few months in the heartland of the Middle East, which is going to have a political effect, let alone a bureaucratic effect over the legitimacy and the legality of the use of force and the likely follow-on use of force that is going to have to come to make this really stick.
Yeah, that's such great perspective. Give us a sense of a couple things that you're going to be watching over the course of the next few days, the next few weeks, in terms of what do you expect to see, or what are you trying to keep your eye on beyond just the obvious things when attacks happen or counterattacks are launched? What else are you watching for in the region?
A couple of big picture things. Obviously very local to Yemen right now, the next Houthi use of force. Politically and diplomatically, I would look at any UAE talks with Iran. There was allegedly a UAE call before the strike happened, but while there was reporting of a strike about to be underway between the UAE foreign minister and his Iranian counterpart, who knows if this is a GCC back channel or an attempt to de-escalate or make sure that the Houthis' patron does not get involved in responding to these attacks. That could be essential in weeks moving ahead. Similarly, Saudi Arabia, there's been reports that even in December they were pressing the administration to not respond forcefully to the Houthis. Now that the administration has indeed responded with military force, one wonders if the Houthis would broaden their targeting, go after Saudi Arabia, and cause another political crisis for Washington that it is ill-prepared to handle, again, in the Middle East. Then there's, of course, the Israel-Gaza war, which I think matters greatly, but I would not forget about the Israel-Hezbollah war, which is ongoing on low intensity, but has a new normal being written to the rules of the road every single day, with Hezbollah being able to strike deeper, use different weaponry, with over 100,000 people in northern Israel internally displaced to the center and to the south. And then lastly, of course, looking at Iran. Iran has promised what they call Pasukh Sacht, a hard answer to the ISIS terror attack in the central city of Kerman that was commemorating the death of Quds Force Commander Qasem Soleimani, year 4 of his killing. ISIS has struck Iran in the past. Iran has militarily and overtly launched missiles at ISIS positions in the past. It may again do so in the future. The kicker is that this time the threat didn't come from ISIS to Iran's west. It came from ISIS to Iran's east. meaning ISIS-K, the ISIS that exists in Central Asia and in particular in Afghanistan. So things, as they heat up on the Western Front, ought not to be forgotten about on the Eastern Front in 2024.
Wow. So interconnected, so complicated in so many ways. Give us one final thought in terms of the administration and things here in the United States. You talk about not really having a Yemen policy. You talk about the complexities with Saudi Arabia, with Israel, with all of these other dynamics. What is it that the administration needs to do on a couple of fronts?
I think
for obviously for the oh, go ahead.
No, I apologize for the excitement and for the interruption. In Persian, when you interrupt and you're, zealously interrupting, you say sugar amidst your words. So forgive the interruption. I'm just sprinkling some sugar.
I love
trying
that.
to get some good news into the bad news. But there is really so much the administration can and should be doing legally, politically, economically. This is high time to restore the FTO designation, the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation that the administration, in my view, needlessly and somewhat politically removed in February 2021 when it came into office against the Houthis. If you're willing to strike at a group but not sanction a group, that is a needless incongruity and problem you have in your policy. So we need to be able to call a spade and use tools short of military to be able to pressure the Houthis. That's, step number one. Step number two is to make sure that the defensive coalition, the Operation Prosperity Guardian, continues to have all the resources it needs to deter and deny and intercept and render unsuccessful future Houthi attacks. A corollary to that is to make sure we're in the right position to respond to these attacks. I would devote more ISR, more intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets to Yemen such that when the Houthis light up a missile and you see the launch, you can respond to the point of origin immediately and take out either the trucks, the rail launchers, or the transporter erector launchers of the drones, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and whatnot that the Houthis are firing. So you can respond right to the point of origin. That should be something militarily we need to do. And then lastly, you have to have a connect-the-dots policy. You can't get tough on Hamas but be weak on the biggest state patron of Hamas, which is the government of the Islamic Republic. You really got to enforce those oil sanctions. You got to make sure that all of Iran's proxies in the Middle East are under not just political and military duress, but economic duress, and cut off those tentacles from patron to proxy, which is obviously easier said than done. But step number one, no own goals. Don't make sure Iran continues to generate money through illicit oil sales or access to these foreign accounts.
Fantastic perspective and insight, as always. Best of the best. Behnam Ben Taleblu, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. And so grateful for you taking some time today. We look forward to continuing the conversation in this very complex region. Again, a lot of confusion, not a lot of clarity, but some very important decisions that are going to be made in the coming days. And Behnam, again, thanks for your perspective and insight, your wisdom, and helping us make it all make a little bit more sense. Thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
So many things beyond the headlines to think about there. I thought it was really significant that Behnam pointed out this incongruency that we've had in U.S. policy. If we're willing to strike, but we're not willing to sanction, if we're willing to take groups off of terror group designation without doing more, will Congress have to play a role in terms of war powers? That's a different discussion. We'll get into that next week. But all of this, as you look at what takes place, there's so many things beyond the headlines. This is an intricate and delicate part of the world. There are clear threats in terms of a broader conflict erupting. The important thing is, how do we navigate it? And are we having the right conversations, not just with our allies and friends in the region, but are we sending the right messages to our enemies as well?
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
This joyful sound is the No More Chemo bell at Intermountain Health St. George Hospital. And it means that Sarah Parker beat cancer. It also means her doctor spotted it early enough to treat, and that her oncologist helped her fight it every step of the way. It means that her nurse helped her keep track of medicines, and that a case manager made the whole experience just a little bit easier. Every time we hear that bell, it reminds us that all things are possible when we work together. It reminds us of the power of we. Intermountain Health.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Palmas. First, Garden City snowed in today due to an avalanche closing Highway 89. The mayor says there's just no good way to get into town. Second, the city of Salt Lake is asking residents to shovel their sidewalks to keep walking safe during the storms. And third, new reports say more than 260 million packages were stolen by porch pirates in 2022. Right now, 30 degrees, cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to The Movie Show on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson, and as we start looking at economics, rolling into a real critical election year, not that economics and politics ever get mixed up, but occasionally a few things happen that way, and whenever it does, of course, we always turn to Jeff Cox, veteran journalist. He's the economics editor for CNBC.com, and always helps us make the numbers make sense. And Jeff, Happy New Year to you, and old crazy, back to the new crazy. I'm not sure where we are on crazy, but what do the numbers tell us today?
Hey, Happy New Year, Boyd. Glad to be back. So I guess I'm going to have to just use the words that my colleague, my fellow Fed reporter, Steve Leisman, used on air this morning. And after the producer price index numbers came out, he said, if you're not confused, you should be. Because it's really we got some conflicting pictures of inflation this week. We saw consumer price index rose 0.3 in December, up 3.4% for the year. That latter number was higher than what Wall Street had anticipated. Then we turn around today and we get the producer price index, which is kind of a gauge of wholesale prices, and that fell 0.1 in December, and it's only up 1% year over year. So definitely some tough signals for the market to parse. At least as far as traders in the Fed funds futures market go, they're looking at this as, kind of a green light for the Fed to go ahead and start easing as soon as May. In fact, the odds now for a May rate cut are up to about 80%, which is pretty overwhelming. And an interesting tussle building up between market expectations and Fed rhetoric at this point.
Yeah, it is always about the expectations, the rhetoric, and then what actually happens in the end. Walk us through that just a little bit in terms of where we are. You mentioned the numbers rounding out the year in terms of inflation, obviously not growing at the same rate that it was a year ago, still going up. What's the messaging in terms of the markets that most Americans are still feeling the pinch, even though the numbers are better than they were?
Well, again, it's conflicting things. It certainly, if you see any of the public opinion surveys, you see a lot of unrest and concern over the cost of living and how high prices still are, even with that we know the rate of inflation is coming down, but prices are not coming down. We're not seeing a lot of disinflation at this point. Though my colleague Greg I. Kersey has a story that's leading our site right now that does look at some of the areas for some particular goods where prices did come down in 2023. Certainly not enough. However, inflation expectations, we saw the New York Fed had a survey out that showed inflation expectations coming way down to the lowest point, I think, almost about 3 years. So, again, some cross signals there. Fed rhetoric at this point is still very, very cautious. Still a number of officials coming out this week. Fed Governor Michelle Bowman, Dallas Fed President Lori Logan, a handful of others coming out making statements that, hey, look, we are we are pleased with the direction that inflation is heading now, but we're still not waving that victory flag yet, and we're still proceeding with caution. And Loretta Mester from Cleveland the other day saying that she still thinks it's too early to talk about March for a rate cut. And then, of course, Jamie Dimon warning this morning about sticky inflation, and Larry Fink from BlackRock coming out CNBC and saying he doesn't even think the market's going to get 3 cuts this year, let alone the 6 that are being priced in. So this is all going to start getting very interesting.
It's definitely going to get very interesting. And then we're going to just add this little thing of a presidential election year on top of that, just to make sure we have complete confusion rather than clarity. How do you see that? How do you see that playing out in terms of kind of expectations? Market expectations are always the name of the game. How do you see people trying to navigate all of this confusion, especially when you got a lot of the politics weighing in as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the market's kind of treating the political situation as noise right now. Things being as in flux as they are. We see Chris Christie bowing out, so that the Republican primary has pretty much turned into a 3-person race with Nikki Haley and DeSantis and Trump, and then Ramaswamy kind of hanging on to kind of circle on the drain as far as his candidacy goes. So I think the market tends to wait for clarity on these kind of things and tends not to do sort of knee-jerky reactions as far as politics goes. Certainly, the market's capable of knee-jerk reactions with a whole bunch of other issues, but politics, they kind of seem to back away from it. I would have to think that, the market's going to be more focused right now on monetary policy. And then there's a whole other dynamic there. If you're Jay Powell, do you want to interject yourself in the middle of a political campaign, which seemingly, hey, if you cut rates 6 times this year, I mean, that's a rate cut at almost every meeting, and of course the market's pricing in 6 cuts this year. If you that would equate to cutting rates at every meeting, and it would certainly open the Fed up to some criticism that they're looking to grease the skids for Joe Biden. So I think they're going to be very cautious as far as that concerned. I personally, I'd be surprised if the Fed cuts in March, and I think that the only route that you get to 8 rate cuts is a pretty substantial contraction in the economy this year, which is not going to be good for Biden. So it's a very tough situation.
Absolutely. A lot to navigate for sure, which is why we're going to have Jeff Cox back very soon to continue to guide us through what's going to be a very turbulent economic and political year. You mix them all together and it gets really interesting really fast. Jeff, as always, we appreciate you carving out time for us.
Great talking to you, boy. Talk to you again soon.
All right. That's Jeff Cox. He is the best of the best when it comes to economics. He's the economics editor for CNBC.com. And we look forward to having him back because the economics are going to play a big role in presidential politics. And we'll do our weekly presidential politics section coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 1:31 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. A man from Layton will have to spend the rest of his life in prison after pleading guilty to killing his wife and in-laws. Jeremy Bailey entered a plea deal to avoid facing the death penalty for the murders of Anastasia Stevens, Becky Stevens, and Donald Stevens. This happened last year in May. Police say Bailey also shot 3 of the family dogs. Took a few months, but scientists have finally been able to get past two fasteners that stood between them and the sample of an asteroid that landed in Utah's West Desert in September. Scientists got some of the sample back in October, but they've been working ever since to get past those two fasteners that wouldn't come off. OSIRIS-REx principal investigator Dante Loretta says what they've found so far supports the theory that an asteroid like the one they sampled brought the building blocks of life to Earth billions of years ago.
Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Those are abundant in the Bennu samples.
Loretta says they hope to have the whole sample cataloged by March. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Boeing will be under new oversight from the FAA after last week's incident on board an Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX 9 in which a door panel blew open in flight. All MAX 9s are grounded in the U.S., and ABC's Alex Stone has more.
After the FAA announced it will increase oversight of Boeing and begin an immediate audit of Boeing's production and manufacturing, now families of those who died in the 2018 Lion Air and 2019 Ethiopian Airlines MAX crashes are reacting. In statements, the families and their attorneys are calling for more action against Boeing by the Department of Justice and a trial against Boeing, saying the 737 MAX continues to show it has serious problems today. Alex Stone, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 149 points at this hour. The NASDAQ is down about 11. And our KSL weather, the storms are on the way. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:33.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
I love a rich history and a legacy of making a difference and demonstrating what it means to really treat people right and special. That's what Hercules Credit Union has been about since 1946. All the way back to 1946, they've always been about growing stronger together. And right now they're going to demonstrate just how committed they are to helping you grow stronger and showing you what it means to be treated right. If you open a new checking account with Hercules Credit Union, you upgrade to a Premier Checking status, you'll get a free upgrade to that Premier Checking account. No monthly fees. You get all the benefits of being a Premier Checking account holder: identity theft protection, travel benefits, perks, cellular care coverage, and so much more. It's all Hercules Credit Union's way to show you that they actually believe you're special and that they know that they're part of the solution to make you stronger financially. You can check out their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, and Salt Lake City, or you can always find our friends at Hercules Credit Union online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
Start the new year off with a bang of big savings during the Omaha Steaks end-of-season event. You can stock up on all your favorites and get 50% off site-wide. That's 50% off incredible steaks like their legendary Butcher's Cut Filet Mignon, or sink your teeth into their memorable Butcher's Cut Top Sirloin. Just go to omahasteaks.com. Plus, when you use code QUALITY at checkout, you'll get an extra $30 off your order. From perfectly aged tender steaks to juicy burgers, decadent desserts, and classic comfort meals, every bite is guaranteed perfect. For a limited time, get 50% off site-wide. Plus, save an extra $30 when you use promo code QUALITY at checkout. Start the new year off right and warm up your winter with tender steaks and hearty home-cooked favorites from Omaha Steaks. All 50% off with their end-of-season event. Make sure to enter the promo code QUALITY at checkout to get that extra $30 off your order. Minimum purchase may apply.
Omaha Steaks, America's original butcher.
Introducing Yes, Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. Maximize your energy savings with a new energy-efficient heating and cooling system from Yes, and you could save up to $4,500 through possible tax credits and other discounts. Purchase a new system today, and Yes will buy back your old inefficient HVAC system. Visit theyesmancan.com to schedule your appointment. Call now or visit theyesmancan.com for details, terms, and conditions.
With fresh snow comes fresh deals at Murdoch Hyundai. Make some fresh tracks to our winter sales event. Receive 0% for 3 years on a new Tucson or Santa Fe.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair. Save up to 20 cents with DinoPay. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have a couple of new crashes. One is westbound I-80. This is going to be a mile east of the Silver Creek area of Summit County. You want to keep an eye out for that. And then scanners calling out, we have a report, I should say, of a possible accident on the ramp from southbound I-15 to go westbound on I-215. Now, that's either in North Salt Lake at the North Interchange or in the Murray area at the South Interchange, and I believe it's probably at the South Interchange, but so far I'm not seeing that anything there has traffic slowing down or causing a problem. Cypress checking account members enjoy discounted rates on auto and RV loans, free access to their credit scores and reports, and a suite of other products and perks. Learn more at cypresscu.com. Cypress Credit Union, your future is our future. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Snow arrives in the northern Wasatch Front this afternoon. When this one passes, we'll have 1 to 3 inches left behind of new snow. And a bigger storm moves in Saturday evening, stays around until Sunday night. That has the potential to drop 4 to 9 inches in the valleys. Right now, 32 degrees and cloudy. I'm Dan Bomis from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Welcome to our weekly segment here on Inside Sources, where we give you the ultimate inside look at presidential politics as we roll through the 2024 election campaign. Of course, today all eyes are on Iowa. Candidates are making their final pitches and pushes with just 3 days to go before the caucuses take place. And a special guest joining us on the show today, the ultimate insider on the political trail this year, Samuel Benson, of course, national political correspondent for the Deseret News. And his newsletter is one that you should sign up for. Just go to Deseret.com, go to newsletters, and you can get onto the 2024 campaign trail. And Samuel, I know you are in the middle of the frozen chosen. It is cold in Iowa this weekend. Give us the lay of the land. Where are you, and what are you following today?
Yeah, that's an understatement, Boyd. I was hearing, the KSL weather station there says 34 degrees and cloudy, and that sounds like a summer oasis compared to what I'm seeing right now. I'm in Des Moines. I'm in West Des Moines. I'm in Urbandale, just a suburb west of the city. It's 12 degrees. It's been snowing nonstop since late last night. Really low visibility on the roads. I mean, all of the candidates canceled events this morning. The only event that's happened so far today was a 7 a.m. coffee event that DeSantis did with Governor Kim Reynolds. Other than that, they've just moved all of their events to Zoom or to online live stream. And it's not hard to see why. I mean, the roads have 6 inches of snow on them. And as I've been driving around to get to one spot to another, you just see lines of cars that have kind of stopped driving because the everything just so you can't see anything. So it's a mess right now. And I mean, 72 hours from now, you'll have Iowans trying to vote, and we hope it clears up by then.
Well, they're very determined in Iowa, and those caucus goers in particular. As you look at that play out, I know you've been following each of the campaigns, different events. As you said, a lot of them have gone online for today. How do you see that impacting this home stretch run, especially with a little shift in the dynamics? Not as much in Iowa as it will be in New Hampshire next week, but with Chris Christie bowing out of the race, there seems to be a little bit of a reshuffling. How is that playing in Iowa?
Well, Boyd, I was under the assumption that most Iowans would already have their minds made up, and so that missing a day or two of campaigning for these candidates wouldn't be a huge deal. I mean, it's been 9 months now that most of these candidates have spent significant time here in Iowa. They've been meeting with voters in small, kind of intimate settings, and I was just under the assumption that if people are undecided, they're probably not going to show up on caucus night. But then I spent the morning out with the Americans for Prosperity door-to-door canvassers who, part of the Koch brothers network that endorsed Nikki Haley a few weeks ago. And they would go they're going door to door trying to get people to commit to caucusing and then for Haley, but if not, just get them out. And we spoke to a majority of people who said they're actually undecided but planning on caucusing. And so then you think of these candidates who have had to cancel their last 2 days of campaigning throughout the state. And you wonder if that makes a difference. I mean, we spoke to 2 people this morning who are snowed in, and they said they were planning on attending a Trump event this afternoon with Kerry Lake, but that's on online now, and so they won't see it, and they have no interest in zooming in. It's just interesting, Boyd, and I can't forecast what's going to happen and how that affects the race, but it certainly will. And perhaps more so than I originally expected.
Yeah, that's so fascinating, and it is true that Iowans they're not interested in the Zoom meeting. They want that hand-to-hand, face-to-face. Of course, Governor DeSantis has been breathlessly declaring his success in hitting all 99 counties in Iowa and getting that all the way done. And there is just something about that in Iowa. You either got to be at the county fair or you got to be at the local coffee shop. To have that press the flesh and look people in the eye kind of moment. And so as it comes down these last few days, what is your sense in terms of how the campaigns are trying to navigate that? Are they trying to alter strategy? Are they trying to make big pushes? Or are they just in scramble mode trying to do whatever could be possible?
No, Boyd, it seems like every campaign is approaching it differently. Trump, in addition to facing the weather, is dealing with significant legal challenges, as you've covered extensively on your show. But, 2 of the days he could have been campaigning here in Iowa on Tuesday and Thursday, he was in a courtroom on the East Coast. So he's had to kind of deal with sending surrogates out here. Carrie Lake was out here, or was supposed to be out here today. He sent other people out to try and campaign throughout the state. And so it's not the biggest deal that his events are not happening because he wasn't going to be there regardless. Whereas DeSantis and Haley, and then others that are still bouncing around the state, whether it's Ramaswamy or Hutchinson or Binkley, they're kind of, in a sticky situation here where they were planning on kind of making one final pitch to voters, mostly in the Des Moines area. So you have Nikki Haley, who's now, been backed by Americans for Prosperity, and they're still doing door-to-door canvassing in this weather. DeSantis' Super PAC, Never Back Down, has been doing door-to-door canvassing all week, as they have been for the last 6 months. So they still have people on the ground that are trying to get to voters, but it's obviously much, much more difficult when people are hunkered down inside and aren't really leaving their houses. And in some of these houses, it's impossible to get to because of snow buildup, on the front porches or the driveways.
That is crazy. And it looks like we'll have the coldest Iowa caucus since I think 1972 is what they seem to be prognosticating. That may be the closest prediction we get in terms of what happens on Monday, is that the weather is going to be cold. 23 degrees, I think, is the expected high. Does that favor anybody? Is it more the hardcore conservatives, which have been more in the former president's camp? Does that help if it's a cold, extra snowy night in Iowa versus some of the other candidates?
Well, first off, the forecast I just saw says a high of 6 degrees, a low of -12, and then with wind chill by that evening, it'll feel like 27 below. So it'll be a brisk evening. And I can't say, Boyd, who this favors most. In some states, they say if you hold a caucus, you take away mail-in balloting or absentee balloting or early voting, it favors kind of the most extreme candidates. But Iowa's been doing this for so long. 76 was the first year they did this on the Republican side. So it's been, almost 50 years. So I can't say which candidate it'll favor, but I will say this. It will play in to the candidates with the most passionate support will have the people turn out. A voter who's undecided is probably less likely to turn out on caucus night if there's a foot of snow and it's 10 below, if they're not sure who they're going to vote for. It's much more likely that people who have been set and are set on their candidate will show up. Yeah. And in poll after poll, it is clear that former President Trump has the most firm support from people who aren't considering any other candidate. So you can take that for what it's worth, but just like it always is in Iowa, you never really know until the votes are counted on caucus night or the night after or 2 weeks after for Santorum in 2012. So in the next couple of days, I think we'll have more clarity on that, but it's really hard to say now who this favors most.
Great perspective, great insight, great reporting as always, Samuel Benson. And it will be a fascinating night in Iowa. It will be cold, it will be snowy, and I think you're exactly right. Those that are going to have the most passionate supporters, really committed, will definitely have the advantage and maybe get warm enough to get over the edge. And you never know in Iowa. Samuel Benson, thanks so much for joining us from the road in Des Moines today. And then just think of it. After Monday, you get to go on to the balmy area of New Hampshire. So
it's the beaches of New Hampshire.
Great stuff. Samuel, thanks as always. Great perspective. We look forward to catching you on the road. Again, you can catch Samuel's newsletter, be part of that. Go to Deseret.com and go to the newsletter section. You can sign up for that. It's great perspective, and it's Brilliant writing, by the way, which we love. So, again, thanks to Samuel Benson. And we'll step aside for a quick break. That is our weekly look, Inside Sources, Inside Look at Presidential Politics. We'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Les Olson IT now provides building security solutions. Do you need physical access control for your facilities? Are you looking for video surveillance systems accessible in the palm of your hand? Les Olson IT has what you need, and their low-voltage network cabling specialists will install it and make sure it's working the way it should. Learn more at lesolson.com.
Les Olson IT.
The new year is here, and it's time to take advantage of Zerorez's best deal of the year. Carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be Zeroresified. So it's time to call the cleaning pros at Zerorez. Don't forget your air ducts to help alleviate allergies or asthma. Enjoy less dust, lower energy bills, and your home will stay cleaner longer. Don't DIY it. Call Zerorez because you know it's safe and effective. Zerorez has a 4.8 rating on Google with over 3,300 reviews. The Zerorez Gotta Love It guarantee makes it easy to get what you pay for. Yeah, Zerorez absolutely stands behind every cleaning. Don't miss the best deal of the year. Get back to clean and get one room of carpet cleaning starting at just $25 per room by using promo code 25RM. Call Zerorez at 866-ZEROREZ or go online at Zerorez.com and say you want the station special. Zerorez. Spell it backward or forwards. It spells the same.
If you've ever set New Year's resolutions before, you know how difficult it is to follow through because you have to wait to see the results. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and in honor of your New Year, New You resolutions, Any Hour Services is having our New Year, New System sale. From now until the end of February, Any Hour Services will give you $2,024 off a new furnace and air conditioner, and you don't have to wait to save the money. You get $2,024 off at the time of purchase. The only thing you have to do to qualify for our New Year, New System sale is call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate. When you call, there's no obligation to buy. Just schedule a time to meet that works best for you. Let me say that again. From now until the end of February, when you have Any Hour Services install a new furnace and air conditioner, we'll give you $2,024 off. Call Any Hour Services right now and schedule a free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Jackson Hewitt has a plan to get your tax refund fast. With a buck here, buck there. Here a buck, there a buck, everywhere a buck.
You don't have to wait weeks for your tax refund. Get money sooner with a no-fee refund advance loan at Jackson Hewitt.
On this loan, there's a money today guarantee. E-I-E-I-Do.
Don't settle for chicken feed. Get fast bucks at Jackson Hewitt today. No-fee refund advance loans by Republic Bank offered to eligible clients. Money today guarantee if approved for a loan on a prepaid card. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Strap in for some full-throttle fierceness. A new season of RuPaul's Drag Race on MTV is speeding your way, and Philo is the most affordable way to watch. We've got 70-plus channels of live and on-demand TV for just $25 a month. Get top channels like MTV, VH1, AMC, Discovery, Nickelodeon, and more, plus unlimited DVR so you can save all your faves. So get ready, set, slay, and watch the new season of RuPaul's Drag Race on MTV with Philo today. Visit philo.tv to get started. That's philo.tv.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, scientists have finally been able to open the capsule with a sample of asteroid dust that landed in Utah's West Desert. Second, a man who pleaded guilty to killing 3 members of his family will spend the rest of his life in prison. Third, Boeing will be getting additional scrutiny from the government after a door panel blew out on one of its 737 MAX 9 airliners. Right now, 32 degrees and cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Well, in the face of the highest debt we've ever had, $34 trillion with a T, politicians are getting a little more creative in terms of how they go about spending. Sometimes it actually looks like tax cuts, which we should all cheer for. Sometimes they're hiding the real cost of what's going on, and so we want to get beyond that, get underneath it in terms of what it actually is, what it actually means for all of us. Really thrilled to have back on the program with us Matt Weidinger, Senior Fellow and Rose Scholar in Opportunity and Mobility Studies at the American Enterprise Institute. And Matt, welcome to the program. And you have a great piece talking about Tax Credit Nation, what the politicians are doing in terms of how they're hiding the true cost of a lot of this spending.
Right. Glad to be with you, Boyd.
So give us go ahead. Dive right on in.
Yeah. So my piece basically, it discusses how politicians, in effect for the last couple of generations, but increasingly lately, seem to be trying to market more spending as if it's tax cuts. And obviously, politicians, both parties like to sell policy as tax relief, but in this case, it's really not tax relief. Often, it's really just plain old government spending. The checks just happen to come from the IRS.
Yeah, and that's it. In fact, you gave a great example. Let's unpack that a little bit. You talked about 2021 speech from the president talking about temporarily expanded child tax credit, but unpack that for us in terms of what it actually is and what it actually does.
Sure. So during the pandemic, Democrats passed a massive stimulus bill, the American Rescue Plan Act. As part of that, they had unprecedented increases in what's called the child tax credit. Now, the child tax credit started out as tax relief for parents. Over time, it drifted in the direction of, well, some people get back the taxes they pay in, but other people get a check from the IRS that doesn't reflect taxes they paid in the first place. And the American Rescue Plan, the 2021 policy, took this to its logical extreme and said even people who don't work and therefore don't pay income taxes get a tax refund that matches that of the people who pay, a high amount of taxes. So the president gave speeches, and Democrats lauding this policy, regularly gave speeches calling this whole thing a middle-class tax cut, when really for most people that were receiving increased amounts, it was increased spending. It's just the benefit check came from the IRS, not from the Social Security Administration or other government agencies.
Wow. And this is, as you said, this has been going on for a long time, but it seems to be accelerating and getting a little worse. You noted in your piece that just looking at some of the legislation introduced to Congress, that both sides, we're always equal opportunity offenders on this show. Both Democrats and Republicans alike have been using these kind of gimmicks and positioning in order to get more spending through. Give us some examples of that.
Yeah, so I actually took a look at all of the bills introduced in the current Congress that would create or expand tax credits that are currently available, and the list is pretty robust and it's kind of ridiculous. So there's policies about restaurant revitalization, nuclear facilities. There's individual professions that are benefited, from healthcare workers to truck drivers to farmers, even beauticians, even local journalists have a tax credit that's proposed to benefit them. There's various manufacturing tax credits. If you're a landscaping company that wants to buy green landscaping equipment, guess what? Somebody's got a tax credit that they would like to provide to you. Even somebody who has an e-bike, you could get a tax credit if a bill providing for that would pass Congress and be signed by the president. So, and my favorite might be Bernie Sanders, who wants to create a tax on Wall Street speculation, but then provide a tax credit to some people so that the tax wouldn't affect them. So, you got to give people credit for creativity in Washington, even if it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I think some of them should become fiction writers because the reality is not even close. As we get towards the end here, you also noted the nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation kind of gave a little better definition in terms of what's going on. Share that with us.
Yeah, so the Joint Committee is a nonpartisan committee that helps Congress basically craft intelligent tax policy, which, there are people actually out in the world that try to do that. And they regularly go through and define what are called tax expenditures. And they certainly consider things like tax credits to be tax expenditures. And what they basically say is these programs are just like spending programs. They just happen to function through the tax code. And that's entirely right. And basically what I'm trying to point out is, just because this type of program maybe has a better marketing department because people like it when they hear tax cuts, it's really no different from a spending program. If we, picked up the child tax credit program or expansion that was created in 2021 and ran it as a spending program, people might say, well, that's a bad idea because we have too many spending programs, too many government benefit programs, too many welfare programs already. But now run it through the tax code, and even though it does exactly what a spending program might do, people say, oh, well, it's a tax cut. And the politicians can say these are tax cuts, and therefore it sounds like it's better than it would otherwise be if it ran as just a regular old spending program.
And that is the perfect definition of the path to get $34 trillion in debt.
That's right.
Matt Weidinger, Senior Fellow and Rhodes Scholar in Opportunity and Mobility Studies at the American Enterprise Institute. Matt, thanks for joining us today. Great perspective. And this is why, folks, you have to get past the headline. You have to know what's in it and what it actually does in the end. Matt, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
It just, as Matt was talking there, I just kept thinking, Abraham Lincoln was known for always having this back and forth with his audiences. And he would often use riddles. And one riddle that Lincoln was purported to use often was to ask an audience, if you call a dog's tail a leg, how many legs does the dog have? And, of course, people would shout out 5. And Lincoln would say, no, 4. Because just calling a tail a leg does not make it a leg. It's still a tail. And the spending that we're seeing, no matter how perfectly packaged, no matter how nicely marketed, no matter how pretty the language is, if they're telling you it's just a tax cut, you better check and see if it's a tail and not a leg, because there's a good chance that it's just more spending. It's not really a tax cut. That's just an easier way to sell it. All right, that rounds out hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 is coming up next. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio,
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. A car was caught in the avalanche that forced Logan Canyon to close early today. Utah Highway Patrol Corporal Jerry Hardy says this happened around 6:30 a.m.
The car got caught in the slide. I guess reports said that it hit the barrier, but it didn't. It was just caught in the slide and was able to get loose and on its way. US 89 will stay closed between Logan and Garden City until at least midnight, while crews make sure no more slides impact drivers. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Answering questions from reporters today in Allentown, Pennsylvania, President Biden was asked about the missile strike by U.S. and U.K. forces in Yemen against Houthi militants over their attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea. The president denied that this is a proxy war with Iran.
We will make sure that we respond to the Houthis as they continue this outrageous behavior, along with our allies.
The president was visiting Allentown to highlight the strength of small businesses. Your money at this moment as we approach the close of trading. The Dow Jones average down on the day, 117 points. The NASDAQ up, but just by about 3. And coming up, it looks like the storms are lined up and ready to move through Utah. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
New home for the new year? Sounds nice, doesn't it? What about new lowered rates? Now's the time to step into a gorgeous new Nilsson home with less commute times, easy access, and with rates that have dropped more significantly than all year. Less really is more in this case. Less maintenance, less commute, and less money per month. Move north with Nilsson Homes. Choose from beautiful townhomes to Rambler communities for all stages of life. Most of all, Nilsson Homes are move-in ready and close to what you love and enjoy with easy commutes. Nilsson Homes has been building across the Wasatch Front for over 45 years, accommodating all the things you need, combined with the things you love. Make sure to ask about end-of-year promotional savings. Experience your new home for the new year. Visit Nilsson Homes Communities at nilssonhomes.com. Nilson homes.com. That's nilssonhomes.com.
The Angie's List you know and trust is now Angie, and we're so much more than just a list. We still connect you with top local pros and show you ratings and reviews, but now we also let you compare upfront prices on hundreds of projects and book a service instantly. We can even handle the rest of your project from start to finish. So remember, Angie's List is now Angie, and we're here to get your job done right. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
Give the star in your life the brightest gift in the world. Name a star after them. This is Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry. For $59 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit starregistry.com, you can name a star for birthdays, weddings, or even memorials. Over 45 years, we have named millions of stars for celebrities and individuals from around the world. The star you name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Visit starregistry.com or call 800-282-3333.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-859-3220. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 to 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-859-3220. That's 800-859-3220 for $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-859-3220. 800-859-3220.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair. Save up to 20 cents with DinoPay. Here's Ricky Meese.
Crews are still working to clear a crash in Summit County westbound I-80 about a mile prior to Silver Creek. Now, Valley Freeway traffic looks really good. However, higher elevations really seeing some snow right now. But UDOT has extended a travel advisory asking that you avoid travel through mountain routes tonight and in the overnight hours. Heavy road snow and whiteout conditions are expected. And if you do have to travel, use extreme caution. Fed Up Kitchen is Utah's premier healthy meal prep service. Save time, money, and get results with their delicious meals made fresh daily. Right now, save 20% on your first order. Use promo code KSL at fedupkitchen.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Snow is arriving in the northern Wasatch Front with 1 to 3 inches falling in the valleys from Salt Lake City northward. Mountains could get up to 16 inches from this first storm, and then a bigger storm moves in Saturday evening, sticks around until Sunday night, and that has the potential to drop 4 to 9 inches in the valleys. And right now we're at 32 degrees, cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Almost a year ago, in the well of the House of Representatives, President Joe Biden pounded the pulpit and declared that the social safety net programs were untouchable. Republicans raucously responded that they were on board. They wouldn't touch those either. Now that we are rolling into a 2024 election cycle, things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid benefits are clearly on the table. The Republicans have been talking about it. The question beyond the headline is, an unserious conversation about these benefits really a conversation? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, it is time to think again about some unserious conversations I think that are going on in this country. Eric Boehm, of course, is a reporter for Reason Magazine. Reason.com focuses on economic policy, trade policy, and elections. And Eric, great piece highlighting the fact that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley had a head-to-head debate. And I think it was a good highlight of the Republican Party being deeply unserious about Social Security and beyond. And one, Happy New Year. Welcome back to the show. And is there a serious conversation to be had about any of this?
Well, Happy New Year too, Boyd. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I think the debate this week between Haley and DeSantis there was the whole sort of section of that debate framed around Social Security. And as I wrote in this, I think it really does kind of illustrate where the Republican Party is at right now. These are two people that are trying to gain a greater foothold race, right? They're trying to appeal to more voters. And you saw Haley kind of backing away from some of the comments she'd made previously about the need to raise the retirement age. You saw DeSantis. He's basically done a 180-degree turn from where he was a decade ago when he was a member of Congress, when he was part of the kind of the Tea Party movement in Congress at the time, and was part of a group of Republican congressmen who were taking this issue seriously. And he had supported Paul Ryan's budget plans that would have made some changes to Social Security, including raising the retirement age. And you've got kind of both of these candidates now kind of running away from that position. And so on one hand, I think that demonstrates the way in which Donald Trump has really changed the conversation about entitlements within the Republican Party by the fact that, starting right with his campaign back in 2016, he said, pretty much straight out that he was not going to touch Social Security at all. And then I think it also just shows where a lot of Republican voters are on this issue. Obviously, these candidates wouldn't be trying to back away from these, what I think, pretty prudent, fiscally responsible proposals. They wouldn't be trying to back away from those ideas if they thought there were votes to be won by embracing them. So it's frustrating to somebody like me who actually does want to see us what to do about the looming insolvency of Social Security. But it doesn't look like there's very many Republican politicians at the moment that are curious or interested in having that conversation.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me because there were, and I remember those days in Congress when there really were some people, and Ron DeSantis was one of those. He had a really sharp pencil, and he was always kind of doodling on the numbers in terms of how you could do it, and how it would make sense, and how you don't impact current beneficiaries, and so on. But now for the political purposes, and as you alluded to, I think kind of the grievance policy and populist message that former President Trump ran on and governed on has now made it impossible for anyone to have a serious conversation. And so we're going to have the serious conversation in terms of the consequences of having unserious conversations. Some people are saying 10 years for Social Security. Some people are saying, hey, cuts are going to happen like within the next 3. What does that actually look like when you put pen to paper?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think, and I've written about this a bunch of times at Reason, and I think this is the message that needs to get out there, is that the idea of saying we won't touch it, that actually means, well, we're in favor of automatic cuts in a decade. Like that's what people, whether it's Trump or whoever, who say we don't need to touch Social Security, what they're advocating for is just the status quo, which means you're going to hit insolvency in 2023, maybe possibly sooner than that. And when insolvency hits, the program will only be able to pay out as much money as it takes in on an annual basis. And what that means for beneficiaries is, as of right now, it means a 23% cut in your promised benefits. I don't think that message is true to most people yet. It still sounds like it's way off in the future, right? 2033 sounds like the future to me. It's like we should have flying cars or something by then. It's kind of right around the corner. It's 9 years away. It's as close to us now as 2015 was, right? Like it's almost as close. It's basically as close to us now as Trump coming down the escalator in Trump Tower and announcing that he was going to run for president. That was in 2015.
Yeah.
Feels like it was just yesterday. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, there isn't a lot of time to make these changes. We should have addressed this problem. You know, President Bush made attempts to do this. Paul Ryan in the 2010s made some attempt to do this. They kicked the can down the road, and just not a lot of road left to keep kicking the can down. So, the do-nothing policy to me, I think people just have to wrap their heads around the idea that what that really means is it means automatic cuts to benefits.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And I do think some people will be more likely to experience a flying car than they will be able to get their Social Security benefit. Those are, I think, both in the same realm of possibility and impossibility. I think it's also really crucial, and I just want to highlight this one more time, Eric, because, again, I don't think the message gets through that when politicians on the left or the right say we're not going to touch Social Security, what they're basically saying is I'm not going to touch it for political purposes, but there's an automatic machete that's going to cut 23% immediately in just a few years.
Yeah, right. And if you think the current fights that we're having now over things like the debt ceiling or things the budget, negotiations that go on, just this week in Congress, right? There's been some, difficulty in just trying to pass an ongoing continuing resolution and pass a new budget deal. That pales in comparison to the problem you're going to face in 2033 with Social Security. So you're going to find yourself in a situation where the politicians are going to find themselves in a situation where you're talking about, again, 23% cuts to benefits, to all security benefits across the board. Or the alternative to that, of course, would be just an absurdly huge tax increase to close that gap, which means it's just further taxing current workers to pay benefits to current retirees, which is just it's a flaw in the system, right? Like this is sort of a fundamental problem with the way Social Security is structured that we've never dealt with. And it would be great to have the time and space to talk about what this program should actually look like, who should actually benefit from it, how structure it in such a way that's fair both to workers and to beneficiaries. That's a big national conversation that desperately needs to happen and that we are really running out of time to have. And yet you've got, if we can't even have a conversation about the reality of the problem, which I think is what the debate this week really demonstrated, right?
Yeah.
That DeSantis and Haley are kind of unwilling to even talk about the reality of the existence of this problem, then we can't have that other conversation that we really need to have about, like, okay, what changes do we make? Who has to sacrifice what to get to a place where the program actually can remain solvent, or where some replacement program can come into play? Yeah. And so, it's just quite depressing where this whole thing has gone.
Yeah, and it's going to take some leaders on both sides of the aisle who say we are going to have the conversation so we can define what is the present reality, because then we can start charting a path and a course to get where we actually need to go. Eric Boehm, a reporter for Reason Magazine, a great piece, reason.com. You should always check out Eric's pieces. He'll give you the straight shot, the real issue, and the real path forward. And that's what it's really all about. Eric, thanks so much for joining us today.
Too kind, Boyd, but thank you very much. Always glad to be here.
Eric Boehm, love having him on this program because he's always thinking about it. And as we look at this from the political standpoint, if the politics always drive it, if both sides are cheering, we're not going to touch it, it just means they're going to be able to shrug their shoulders and say, I didn't touch it. But what that means to you or to the people that you care about who are supposed to receive that benefit, it's an automatic drop of the machete. 23% immediately is going to be the impact if we don't deal with the issue. And so if we only have leaders who are only willing to engage in political theatrics and performative politics and never have a serious conversation, if all we get served up is unserious conversations about the politics of it, we're never going to get to the principles that will drive us to the solution, which is going to be what will benefit the American people.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. We asked for it.
We need a healthy snowpack to fill our reservoirs.
Now we're getting it.
The plows have gone through here, but it is definitely still slick.
Emergency traffic.
Icy conditions on the road, even with the plows throwing down some salt.
Well over a foot of snow for the Wasatch Front total.
Now that we're finally seeing snow in the valleys, you should know KSL is ready. Get updates with traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s and emergency traffic at a moment's notice.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
This is it. The best year of your life starts right here with Soda Weight Loss.
I am ready for this.
It's Soda's Shape Up Showdown, where you could win a full year of Soda's amazing program and a $2,000 wardrobe makeover.
Oh, yeah.
Because with Soda, you will let go of the weight and keep it off for good. Soda is the #1 weight loss program in America for client satisfaction and results, and we have the proof at sodaweightloss.com.
2024 is going to be my year.
What are you waiting for? If you've tried other diets and the weight just comes back, get real results with Soda Weight Loss. Enter to win a year's free program and a $2,000 makeover right now. Email shapeup@sodaweightloss.com. That's shapeup@sodaweightloss.com. Some restrictions apply. See store for details. Don't wait. Enter to win the Shape Up Showdown now by emailing shapeup@sodaweightloss.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
Jackson Hewitt has a plan to get your tax refund fast with a buck here, buck there. Here a buck, there a buck, everywhere a buck.
You don't have to wait weeks for your tax refund. Get money sooner with a no-fee refund advance loan at Jackson Hewitt.
On this loan, there's a money today guarantee. E-I-E-I-DO.
Don't settle for chicken feed. Get fast bucks at Jackson Hewitt today. No-fee refund advance loans by Republic Bank offered to eligible clients. Money today guarantee if approved for a loan on a prepaid card. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
When words come out of our mouths and everything sounds fine, no one bats an eye. But if things come out a little jumbled or letters sound different than most, there's speech therapy. But did you know that speech therapy is used for more than just stuttering or disfluency? From articulation to expressive and receptive language to a simple act of swallowing that most of us take for granted, speech therapy can do amazing things for you, your health, and of course your sense of self. That's why Summit Speech Therapy is here. Summit Speech Therapy works with people of all ages, from infants and toddlers who have a difficult time feeding or eating, TBI, stroke, or coma patients, to children and adults with speech problems. So much of it is all related, and Summit Speech Therapy can help. Summit works with all insurance companies as well as private pay options, and the experience can be life-changing. With clinics up and down the Wasatch Front, including Murray, with no long waiting for an appointment. For more, visit summitslp.com. That's summitslp.com.
Get ready for the ultimate movie experience. You, your loved ones, the big screen, and, oh yeah, the world-class Utah Symphony playing the movie's music live, giving you next-level surround sound. Don't miss the Hollywood classic Casablanca or the animated favorite How to Train Your Dragon. The Films in Concert series will become your new preferred cinematic experience. Located conveniently in downtown Salt Lake City at Marisa Bravenel Hall. See what's playing next at utahsymphony.org/films. Listen to the greatest classical hits from the 1700s to today. The world-class Utah Symphony performs thoughtfully curated programs featuring timeless masterpieces by Strauss, Dvorak, and Tchaikovsky, and even world premieres from modern composers. The Utah Symphony's Masterworks concerts offer elegant and entertaining evenings at Marisa Bravenel Hall in the heart of Salt Lake City. Tickets start as low as $21. Get yours at utahsymphony.org.
Mr. Mac's Buy One, Get One sale. Buy one suit for $299. Get the second for $100. Any style, any occasion. Free alterations in 9 locations. Mr. Mac.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, Highway 89 through Logan Canyon will probably be closed until at least midnight tonight. It was shut down by an avalanche early this morning. Second, NASA scientists have finally been able to get the lid off the capsule that brought back dust from an asteroid last year. And third, President Biden was in Allentown, Pennsylvania today, but the questions were all about the U.S. response to Houthi missile attacks in Yemen. 32 degrees and cloudy right now. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson, and very interesting, 6 years ago on Sunday, Russell M. Nelson became the president and leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And as we marked that, I actually remember where I was because I was actually standing in this studio guest hosting for Doug Wright 6 years ago when President Nelson was announced as the president and prophet leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And we want to look back at an amazing 6 years. And it's easy to do that in the context of major accomplishments, milestones, but as we often like to do on this show, we want to get to what principles have we learned in this whole process. So to help us do that, as always, we turn to the executive editor for the Church News, Sarah Jane Weaver. And Sarah Jane, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So let's start kind of high level. As you reflect on President Nelson's extraordinary leadership over the last 6 years, he's now 99 years of age, rolling towards 100. What are the things that come to your mind?
Well, President Nelson has been a dynamic and fast-paced leader. He's visited 35 nations. He's changed church organization. He's utilized technology. He led the church through a pandemic. He's issued historic invitations. And as you and I have witnessed, he's built so many bridges of understanding.
Yeah, and that's such a powerful thing. His watching him in places around the world, whether it was with leaders of nations or other faith leaders or members of the Church of Jesus Christ, he has that extraordinary linking arms, locking arms, and moving forward together approach to leadership. You've had the opportunity to get some feedback and insight from many of his colleagues at the headquarters of the church, those in senior leadership positions. Give us some sense of what principles they've been observing in President Nelson.
As the Church News looked to figure out how we would note this anniversary of 6 years as prophet and leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we said, let's talk to the people that work closest with him and find out what they've observed in or have noted from his leadership. So we ask his counselors in the First Presidency and every member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and the church's women leaders, and ask each of them to share one leadership quality with us that would represent President Nelson. And the thing that was most interesting to me is that they weren't the leadership qualities that you would think that the world would celebrate. These are people who were talking about President Nelson being kind and humble and decisive, that he sees the best in people, and that he's gentle.
I love that. And one of the interesting things that we noted from President Emily Bell Freeman, that she noted something that we've talked about on this show before, and that is that President Nelson often leads not command and control, again, not a lot of the things we think about in political leaders or business leaders, but always through invitation.
Isn't that amazing? He never uses the word, you must do this, or you should do this. He says, I invite you to do this. And then he usually promises blessings that come with those invitations. I also was touched by a contribution by President Dallin H. Oaks, who has served side by side with President Nelson since 1984. And he said, in everything he does, he understands the objective. And in this case, it's the doctrine of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And he makes decisions that are governed by doctrine. An example of that was that he asked members of the church to use the full and correct name of the church.
Yeah, I thought that was such a powerful moment, and it was definitely not for media, not for outside people, but that focus on the name of the church was really an internal thing in terms of getting the members to realize what they were about and what the focus should be. You've noted that Elder Garrett W. Gong of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, he talked about something that is indicative, and that is that President Nelson tends to show patterns. So his leadership is usually about a principle. He demonstrates a pattern, and then that invitation comes.
Yeah, we have seen his patterns over and over again, and each member of the Quorum of the 12 and the women leaders talked about many of those. The one that touched me the most is they said he's always present. He leads by prayer. He always tries to say, let's start this meeting and acknowledge who we're actually working for and whose church this is. And then he knows people's names.
Yeah, it's such an amazing ability to connect there. One that jumped out to me comes from Elder Quentin L. Cook of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, who, in the midst of many of these attributes of kindness, of listening, of being present, also said that President Nelson is an extraordinarily decisive leader.
And when you think about President Nelson's background, and Elder Cook has suggested this on many occasions, he's a heart surgeon. He is in the middle of a surgery. If something goes wrong, he has to make a decision, and he has to act on it immediately. He doesn't have time to take a vote, and so he is his leadership is very interesting because he cares about the opinions of other people. He listens to the opinions of other people, but when that moment of decision comes, he moves forward with decisiveness. Now, Elder Cook also said something that goes with that decisiveness is something that you wouldn't expect, which is a humility. He's not arrogant in his decisiveness. He's a humble leader.
Yeah, I love that. And how he would often, it's been noted that he would take some of that decisiveness to his colleagues in the First Presidency in the Quorum of the 12 and say, here's what I've learned now. You need to go figure this out for yourself. Get your own inspiration or revelation about this, and then let's come back and talk about it. And so both decisive and yet forever curious and learning.
And I loved something that Elder Neil L. Anderson said. He shared an experience that he had witnessed from President Nelson back in 2005, where they were at a groundbreaking of a temple in Curitiba, Brazil. And President Nelson offered some remarks with a translator. And then then Elder Anderson said he dedicated the site for this temple in perfect Portuguese. He said it wasn't just the grammar, but he actually was using a native Brazilian accent. And after this event, Elder Anderson spoke to President Nelson and said, "Wow, that was remarkable." And President Nelson said that everyone at the groundbreaking would never know how much time and effort it took to prepare for that. Wow. Now, he's not claiming any of the credit. He just said, I knew I had this assignment. I knew it would be important to members there that it be in their own language, so I dedicated the time to prepare for that.
So interesting. I also thought it was interesting that President Camille N. Johnson, who leads the General President of the Relief Society organization for the church, really, I think, made that connection in terms of President Nelson leading in a Christ-like way, that it was about providing relief and understanding, which, again, is not something you always associate with someone in that kind of position.
And Sister Johnson's counselor, Sister Kristen Yee, said he makes everyone feel needed and valued and welcome, that he notices individuals in the room and pays attention to them. And that idea of genuine love is also something that is very unique in a lot of the world's leadership circles.
And that's such an interesting thing as you juxtapose this kind of leadership versus a lot of the leadership or quote leadership we see in politics, in business, in so many other places around the world. As we come down the home stretch, Sarah Jane, as you have seen him in many of these different settings, you've seen his impact on other leaders and members of the Church of Jesus Christ and people outside of the Church of Jesus Christ. Give us one of your principles from President Nelson in terms of what is it that makes him such an extraordinary leader?
Well, I had an experience with President Nelson once where he asked me to do something and I didn't do it. And when I realized that I had dropped the ball, I felt horrible and immediately sent an email apologizing for that. And the response that came back was one that did not dwell on the mistake that had been made. He accepted the apology, and then he looked forward. And that forward thinking, that forward looking, that idea that I am going to see people for who they can become and maybe not who they are at the moment is a powerful thing, especially when it's impacting you personally. And so to lead a church of 17 million around the world in a way that is looking forward and saying, what can we become? What do we as a people have the potential to do is I think one of the most powerful leadership qualities he has.
And it's always that invitation to move forward. And it seems that the older he has gotten, the more forward-facing and forward-looking he has become as well. And as we look at that influence around the world, again, both for those who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and so many others all around the world in so many different settings, President Nelson has a unique space in terms of what he has done over the last 6 years. It was 16 years ago on January the 14th that he became the president and spiritual leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And one of the things that I have noticed as we round out this segment, looking back, is in most settings, President Nelson is the smartest person in the room. He is brilliant in intellect. He is brilliant in spiritual insight, brilliant in these leadership principles we've been talking about. And there are some people, when they're the smartest person in the room, everyone else leaves feeling a little less than. I've never seen that with President Nelson. He's the smartest person in the room, and when everyone leaves, they feel smarter, they feel better, more hopeful, and they actually think they can become more in the days ahead. And to me, that is the essence of true leadership. And it's been something we've watched for the last 6 years in particular as he has led the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Sarah Jane Weaver, Executive Editor of the Church News, thanks for helping us reflect back. And with President Nelson, we'll continue to project forward to see what comes next. All right, we'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 2:33 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomis. KSL's top story this hour, getting to Garden City on the south end of Bear Lake, all but impossible right now. Highway 89 through Logan Canyon was closed by an avalanche early this morning. Routes through Idaho also seeing heavy snow. Mayor Mike Leonard says it's just a good weekend to sit home by the fire.
You really can't get here really with the road closures, and it's just not worth being out on the roads, wherever you're at, where this storm is at.
The mayor says they expect to have all the roads open and everything ready for the Bear Lake Monster Winterfest in 2 weeks. People receiving Social Security would be allowed to keep more of their checks under a bill being proposed to Utah lawmakers. Representative Walt Brooks wants to increase the state's exemption for Social Security taxes. He doesn't think his bill will make it through the legislative session, though, the way it's currently written.
Most likely, in what's happened in years past, it gets combined with the total tax bills that go out.
And he says eventually he'd like to see that state tax eliminated. Our top national story this hour. NASA scientists have finally been able to remove 2 stubborn fasteners that stand between them and the rest of an asteroid sample that landed in Utah last fall.
It's kind of like having a second Christmas. You get to open the package again, see if there's anything new inside of it that may enhance the science results you've already uncovered.
OSIRIS-REx principal investigator Dante Loretta says they already extracted 70 grams of asteroid material from the capsule in October. It has an abundance of chemicals that scientists think helped bring life to Earth billions of years ago. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today down 118 points, while the NASDAQ was up but just under 3 points. The S&P 500 up about 3.5 points today. And our KSL weather, the storms are ready to move in. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:35.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Everybody knows that your credit history can have a huge impact on your life, Amanda, especially when you're just starting out as an adult.
That's why Utah Community Credit Union, UCCU's new Credit Builder loan is such a great idea. It's a way to build or to rebuild your credit.
All right, so let's talk about how it works. With Credit Builder, UCCU will open an account in your name and then provide that account with a fixed amount of funds along with a small automatic monthly payment. And as your automatic payments are made over time, of course, your credit builds, proving you're a responsible borrower and raising your credit score.
And that credit score is just so important because it determines the interest rates you'll get, higher credit limits, better loan terms because of your credit score.
And by the way, if you have kids in high school, open a Credit Builder loan in their name, and that way they're going to graduate from high school with a good credit score of their own.
It's called the Credit Builder loan from Utah Community Credit Union, UCCU.
Just call or text UCCU or stop by any branch and start building your credit today.
UCCU, you're going to love where you bank.
The monster is coming, and it wants you and your family.
And that's great news, really, because it's time for the Bear Lake Monster Winterfest, January 26th through the 28th. Winterfest is all about an incredible celebration of winter and all the fun it brings. So start Friday with Monster Winter Sports and Trails Day, a free event featuring fat tire bikes, snowshoes, snowmobiles, and tubes for the kids. Also a taste of Bear Lake, with local restaurants dishing up their tasty specialties. Then Saturday, it's the Monster 5K Walk and Run, a Monster Cisco Disco Tournament, chili cook-off, even a cardboard boat regatta, followed by the famous Monster Plunge. Come on, Bear Lake awaits. Visit BearLakeMonsterWinterfest.com for pre-registration times and locations. That's BearLakeMonsterWinterfest.com. Presented by Bear Lake Visitors Bureau and Bear Lake Chamber.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair. Save up to 20 cents with DinoPay. Here's Ricky Meeks.
Valley freeways, the main secondaries in really good shape. Higher up, not so much. You're going to run into snow. We do have an accident westbound on I-215 South Belt. It's going to be just after 7th East, move to the shoulder. A crash for downtown drivers at the intersection of 500 South 4th East. And an accident 2200 West 2100 North. Don't miss the amazing Utah Auto Expo January 12th through 15th at the Mountain America Exposition Center. See the newest cars, trucks, electric vehicles, all in a non-selling environment. AutoExpoUtah.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Snow arrives in the northern Wasatch Front this afternoon. 1 to 3 inches falling in the valleys from Salt Lake City northward. And mountains could get up to 16 inches. Then a bigger storm moves in Saturday evening and sticks around until Sunday night. And that could drop 4 to 9 inches in the valleys. Right now, 32 degrees, mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, younger voters are always a popular topic rolling into a presidential election cycle. Who will show up, who won't, what's energizing them, what's not. And, of course, for many younger voters, they've been losing faith in our government and even in their ability to have influence, the real power of their vote. They feel hopeless. Many of them are exhausted and exasperated at the idea of another Biden versus Trump election for 2024, and that might just keep them home and away from the polls altogether. But we want to know where voters really stand in the democratic process and what needs to change across the political spectrum in terms of how do you message, how do you engage, how do you reignite participation in civil society, in civics, and democracy. And really thrilled to have joining us on the program today Anjali Hyung, a political reporter for the New York Times covering the 2024 election. And Anjali, thank you so much for joining us today. Great piece in the New York Times talking about the younger voters and their discontent. Give us a little bit of the lay of the land from your perspective. Where are our younger voters today?
Hi, Boyd. Thanks for having me. So the gist of the story is that younger voters under 30 supported President Biden by more than 20 points in 2020, and they were a really crucial voting bloc for him that helped him win the presidency that year. But in a number of recent polls, including from the New York Times, he has been more even with and at times behind former President Donald Trump in a hypothetical rematch next year or later this year. And obviously, the primaries are not over yet. The obvious caveat is that, the first Republican contest will occur on Monday, so Donald Trump has not yet secured the nomination. But in that hypothetical rematch, young voters are simply not enthused about either option this time around.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things is as you look at that playing out, I think there's a lot of angst and frustration with younger voters in terms of this potential rematch and what that actually means. You referenced in your piece, it's something out of the Institute of Politics at the Harvard Kennedy School last month. Give us some indication in terms of what that's telling us in terms of where people are and what we can expect moving forward.
Right. So the Institute of Politics at Harvard found last month that young people appear less inclined to vote than they did at the same point of before the 2020 cycle. That before that cycle, there were about 57% of young voters who said they definitely plan to vote, compared to 49% last month. And, polls are predictive. They don't actually indicate how people are going to vote. But to see that drop off in enthusiasm should be of concern to, voters to supporters of either party right now. It means that young people don't like their options right now. They are not excited or energized in the way that they need to be in order to turn out in the fall. And that is, as I said before, a great concern, particularly to President Biden's reelection effort, given that he really depended on these voters last time around.
Yeah, they definitely were a big part, as you pointed out, a big part of his winning path in 2020 and will be real crucial in 2024 as well. Give us a sense in terms of what you're seeing and sensing in terms of what would or what will animate those young voters. Sometimes we get conflicting signals that it's about the social issues or it's about climate change. Does it still get back to economics and job opportunities and upward mobility?
Right. Well, I think it's a combination of all of the above. So when talking to some of these young voters, when I asked them why they weren't excited about this election, why they weren't excited about President Biden in particular, a lot of them cited the economy. And that's not necessarily because of objective measures of how the economy is doing right now, but instead of what they're feeling on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of them cited rising home prices, continued student debt, gas prices, grocery prices, that essentially the cost of living for a lot of young people right now is feeling really high, even if the economy is doing better than it has been. And so, first, I think there needs to be better messaging around the economy in order to get some of these young voters enthused. And that is something that's, that campaigns on both sides of the aisle are aware of. Young people who work in organizing spaces tell me they also want to see more concerted efforts from politicians to reach young people where they actually are. So, supporters of President Biden cited things like Vice President Harris's recent college tour. They want to see more digital efforts and, connecting with influencers online to better message things like how around the economy or other issues that are mobilizing young voters.
Yeah, no question about that. And then just in our final minute, as you look at the lay of the land, and again, to me, it seems like there's this disconnect from both the left and the right in terms of how they're talking to, we're talking at young voters. Is there anything in there in terms of inviting them to be part of the solution that either side is getting any kind of traction with?
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of young voters that I spoke with are really disoriented with the political system at large right now. They described it to me in words like depressing and disheartening and scary. They aren't confident in the party system in the ways that maybe their parents or their grandparents were. And so there's something that can be done to push back on that, as experts have told me, is to actually message how government is working for them, for people to explain to them why they should be voting for someone or for something, rather than voting against another party or candidate or whatever it may be.
Great perspective. Anjali Hung, political reporter for the New York Times, covering 2024 campaigns, and a great piece there at the New York Times. You should check that out as well. Anjali, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Great perspective there. Again, how do you get to the young voters? You got to get to the right issue, and then you got to invite them to be part of something. As Anjali said, this is not just about being. Step aside for one last break. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Weeks like this are what KSL is all about.
Moderate to heavy snow throughout the day, through the overnight.
The roads up north just getting hammered right now, including I-15.
Thicker, heavier, wetter snow than this powdery light stuff we've been getting.
Harder to shovel come the weekend.
Extra reporters, emergency traffic conditions, school cancellations. Rely on KSL News Radio.
102.7 FM,
1160 AM.
and Ask Alexa, play KSL News Radio.
The new year is here, and it's time to take advantage of Zero Res's best deal of the year. Carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, basically every surface in your home can be Zero Resified. So it's time to call the cleaning pros at Zero Res. Don't forget your air ducts to help alleviate allergies or asthma. Enjoy less dust, lower energy bills, and your home will stay cleaner longer. Don't DIY it. Call Zero Res because you know it's safe and effective. Zero Res has a 4.8 rating on Google with over 3,300 reviews. The Zero Res Gotta Love It guarantee makes it easy to get what you pay for. Yeah, Zero Res absolutely stands behind every cleaning. Don't miss the best deal of the year. Get back to clean and get one room of carpet cleaning starting at just $25 per room by using promo code 25RM. Call Zero Res at 866-ZERO-RES or go online at ZeroRes.com and say you want the station special. Zero Res. Spell it backward or forwards. It spells the same.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. If you're a dad who is facing divorce, there are extra layers of stress that may include stereotypes and assumptions. No two situations are the same. Our legal experience and dedication prepare us for whatever legal challenges we face together. You need a partner you can count on. For more than 30 years, Cordell & Cordell has represented men in divorce.
Offices in Midvale and Clearfield. 1412 South Legend Hills Drive, Suite 200, Clearfield, Utah, 84015. Online at CordellCordell.com.
Jackson Hewitt has a plan to get your tax refund fast with a buck here, buck there. Here a buck, there a buck, everywhere a buck.
You don't have to wait weeks for your tax refund. Get money sooner with a no-fee refund advance loan at Jackson Hewitt.
On this loan, there's a money today guarantee. E-I-E-I-Do.
Don't settle for chicken feed. Get fast bucks at Jackson Hewitt today. No-fee refund advance loans by Republic Bank offered to eligible clients. Money today guarantee if approved for a loan on a prepaid card. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, and the process is 100% online. To start your free online visit, go to hims.com/joy. That's HIMS.com/JOY.
I lock up my Old Spice Fiji aluminum-free dry spray to keep that 24/7 lasting freshness safe for myself. Fresh coconuts, palm trees in the wind. It's like catching waves in Fiji. Actually, I just talked myself into a refreshing spritz of Fiji. My Old Spice is missing! No!
If you're on the journey of building your dream home, remodeling, or just want to brighten up some rooms, let the Blind Man be your tour guide into the possibilities 2024 has to offer. Window coverings balance functionality and aesthetics by managing light and privacy effortlessly. Whether you seek a captivating design element, enhanced privacy, light-blocking solutions, or an infusion of natural light, the Blind Man's consultants are here to navigate you through the latest trends, tailoring them to complement your unique style. Motorized and automated roller shades have emerged as the preferred choice in 2024. This is driven by features such as the convenience they provide for hard-to-reach windows, providing safety for both children and pets, and contributing to energy efficiency. The Blind Man's experts would love to help you explore the options along your journey. Visit theblindman.com today to set up a free in-home consultation. Theblindman.com.
From Ogden to St. George, Utah's premier window covering provider, The Blind Man.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370, 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Let me talk to your furnace for a moment. Hi there, furnace. Can I call you Bob? Working hard, Bob? Giving warmth night after night, day after day, often neglected, unappreciated, on the edge of your ability, Bob? Giving your all, ready to burn a bearing or blow a fuse, yet pressing on despite your lack of maintenance and tender loving care, Bob? What's that you say, Bob? Bob says, call the Furnace Whisperers, the Whipple Service Champions Furnace Tuner-Uppers, where you get $55 off the best furnace tune-up in the world in our marketplace. Not the feather dusters, the deep down, back to factory conditions furnace tune-uppers. Thanks, Bob. We speak furnace, and if you call us, we already know what Bob will say. Thank you. Whipple Service Champions, Utah's original friendly family business since 1947. 801-444-FAST. 801-444-FAST.
Whipple, they come, heating troubles all gone.
For emergencies, when you call today, we come today. Bam.
My savings are gone.
Okay, where were they last?
Here, right before I spent them on that vacation to Aruba.
Weird. Not weird. Not saving now means no money later. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Well, it is always a good day when we are joined on the show by Christian Bridgke, of course, a reporter at Reason, covers property rights, housing policy, transportation policy, and regulation in a big way. And this is one of those think again kind of conversations. We've heard a lot about rent controls and housing prices and all those challenges. And Christian, in your piece at Reason.com today, you talked about rent control for the rich, but the rest of you are kind of on your own. Tell us about it.
Yeah, sure. So I recently published a piece based on some documents I received showing tenants in New York's rent stabilization program, which covers about 1 million apartments in New York City, and a couple other communities in the state also have this. And the program, it sets maximum legal rents for units and also governs maximum legal rent increases. And it's intended as a way to provide, affordable and stable housing to New York tenants. And what I learned from these documents I received was that you had a number of tenants who also happen to be quite wealthy themselves and are, in fact, property owners, in a few cases, landlords, and who are benefiting from this program by receiving massively below market rents, even though they can obviously very easily afford, or at least could afford, market rents in New York, given the fact that they're owning, in some cases, $2 million homes in the Hamptons, or vacation rental properties that they're renting out for much more than what their rent stabilized apartment goes for.
And so as we look at that, we often talk about making sure that those that are struggling, or those, that aren't getting priced out of the market, we know that's a challenge in so many places. But like many programs, there's not the right kind of processes, or in this case, means testing doesn't seem to be part of that equation, so that someone who does have a house in the Hamptons as well as a rent-controlled property in the city, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense in terms of, are we actually helping who we think we're helping, or is this just another example of helping the wealthy and not to paying too much attention to who else it impacts?
Right, for sure. Yeah. So you're right. What these people are doing is, to be clear, is totally legal, and it's totally above board as far as the rules of the program. There's no requirement under New York's rent stabilization law